"Mom, you need to be out by Friday." While I stood in the rain with two suitcases, watching my son close the door on 30 years of memories. 3 days later, I walked back in as their landlord. You should have seen their faces. But let me back up, because the real story started 2 weeks earlier on a Tuesday afternoon when my son called me at work. Before I tell you the secret that changed everything, I have a quick question. Have you ever been treated as disposable by the very people you sacrificed everything for? If you know this pain, comment below and let me know you're not alone. And subscribe to the channel, because here, we don't just get angry, we get our revenge. And believe me, you'll want to see his face when I reveal the truth. I was grading papers in my classroom when my phone rang. Steven, my son, he never called during the school day unless it was important. "Hey, honey," I said, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder. "Everything okay?" There was a pause. Too long. "Mom, we need to talk. Can you come by tonight?" Something in his voice made my pen stop moving. "Of course. What's wrong?" "Just come by around 7. Melissa will be here too." Melissa, his wife, the woman who'd smiled at me exactly 3 times in the 4 years they'd been married. I should have known then. I arrived at 7 sharp, carrying a peach cobbler I'd made that afternoon. The building block looked the same as always. Red brick, 6 stories, built in the 1950s. I'd been living in Unit 3B for 7 years, ever since Robert died and the house felt too big and too quiet. Stephen and Melissa lived in 4C, 1 floor above me. It had seemed perfect when they moved in 3 years ago. Family close by, my grandson, Tommy, just upstairs. I could babysit anytime. Stephen opened the door before I could knock. "Stephen." He didn't smile, didn't take the cobbler. I walked into their apartment and immediately noticed Melissa sitting on the couch, her hands folded in her lap like she was posing for a portrait. She was wearing what I called her serious outfit, the black pantsuit she wore to parent-teacher conferences and HOA meetings. "Sit down, Carol." Not Mom Carol, not even "Carol, would you like some tea?" Just sit down, like I was an employee being called into HR. I sat in the armchair across from them. Stephen remained standing, his hand on the back of Melissa's chair. "What's going on?" I asked. Stephen cleared his throat. "We've been thinking about our living situation." "Okay." "And with Melissa's parents getting older, they need more support. Her mom's arthritis is getting worse, and her dad's—" "They need to move in with family," Melissa interrupted. "With us." I nodded slowly. "That's wonderful. You're good kids to help them. Do you need me to babysit more while you look for a bigger place?" Stephen's jaw tightened. "That's the thing, Mom. We're not looking for another place." The room felt smaller suddenly. "We need Unit 3B, Melissa said. Her voice was flat, businesslike. "It's bigger than ours, 3 bedrooms instead of 2. My parents need space." I blinked. "But that's where I live." "We know," Stephen said quickly, "and we've thought about this a lot. You're only 1 person. You don't need 3 bedrooms. My in-laws are 2 people who need proper space for medical equipment and—" "Stephen," my voice came out harder than I intended. "Are you asking me to move out of my home?" "We're not asking," Melissa said. She reached over to the coffee table and picked up a piece of paper. "We're informing you. We spoke to Mr. Halloran, the building owner. He's agreed to transfer your lease to us. You have until Friday to vacate." The paper she held was a lease termination notice. My name at the top, Friday's date at the bottom. 4 days away. Friday? The word barely made it out. That's 4 days. "Mr. Halloran was very understanding," Melissa continued. "He knows family situations can be complicated. He's giving you until end of business Friday. That's actually generous. Legally, he only has to give 72 hours for family transfers." I looked at my son who I raised alone after his father died when he was 12. My son who I worked 2 jobs to put through college. My son who was standing there, silent, letting his wife dismantle my life in bullet points. "Stephen," I said quietly, "are you really doing this?" He finally met my eyes. For just a second, I saw something. Guilt, maybe. Regret. But then Melissa touched his hand and it vanished. It's business, Mom. You don't pay much rent. You're on that old tenant rate from 7 years ago. My parents will pay current market value. It makes financial sense. Financial sense, I repeated. And you're at school all day anyway, Melissa added. You barely use the space. My parents are retired. They'll actually be there. I stood up. My legs felt like water, but I stood anyway. Where exactly do you expect me to go in 4 days? Melissa shrugged. There are plenty of apartments in the area, smaller ones, more suitable for a single woman your age. 1 bedroom, maybe, more affordable. More affordable. My throat was tight. I've been paying $1,200 for 7 years. Exactly, Melissa said. Market rate is $3,500 now. My parents can afford that. You're a teacher. You should probably be looking at places in your actual budget range. The way she said teacher, like it was a synonym for failure. I looked at Stephen one more time. He was staring at the floor. Friday, I said. Not a question. A statement of fact. End of business, Melissa confirmed. Mr. Halloran will be by at 5 p.m. to collect the keys. I walked to the door. Neither of them stood up. Mom, Stephen called when my hand was on the doorknob. It's nothing personal. No, it's worse than that. It's business. I closed the door quietly behind me. My cobbler was still sitting on their kitchen counter. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my living room, my 3-bedroom living room that I apparently didn't deserve, and started making phone calls. By midnight, I'd learned several interesting things. First, there was no such thing as a family transfer clause in Illinois rental law. Second, Mr. Halloran, the building owner, couldn't just terminate my lease without cause. I'd paid on time for 7 years. I had rights. Third, Stephen and Melissa had been planning this for at least 3 months. I found that out Wednesday morning when I went to the building office to speak with Mr. Halloran. He was a small man in his 70s, always wore suspenders, and always smelled of peppermint. He'd been good to me when Robert died, gave me a month free rent while I sorted out the life insurance. Carol, he smiled when I walked in. I was hoping you'd stop by. Stephen said you might have questions about the transition. The transition, I said carefully. Is that what we're calling an illegal eviction now? His smile faltered. Now, Carol, it's not like that. This is a family arrangement. Stephen explained the whole situation to me. His in-laws need help. You're willing to downsize. I'm willing? Well, Stephen said you'd agreed that you wanted to move somewhere smaller anyway, save money for retirement. I sat down without being invited. Mr. Halloran, I never agreed to any of this. I found out last night. They gave me 4 days' notice. The color drained from his face. 4 days? No, Stephen said you'd been discussing this since February. He showed me texts between you two, planning it all out. Texts? Yes, he had them on his phone. Showed me back in March. You talking about wanting to downsize, asking him to help you find a smaller place. I wouldn't have agreed to any of this otherwise, Carol. You know that. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my knees. Can I see these texts? I don't have copies, but Stephen was very thorough. He even showed me where you'd been looking at 1-bedroom apartments in Schaumburg. Schaumburg, 40 minutes away, where Melissa's parents currently lived. Mr. Halloran, I said slowly, I never sent those texts. I don't want to move. I never wanted to move. He looked genuinely distressed now. But the new lease is already drawn up. Stephen and Melissa signed yesterday. They're moving your furniture to a storage unit this weekend. They've already paid first, last, and security deposit for 3B. That's $10,500. They paid $10,500 for my apartment? Well, for their apartment now. Market rate is $3,500 a month. It's all legal and proper, Carol. I had my lawyer draw up everything. I stood up. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I need to see those texts. I don't have them. Stephen does. But Carol, listen, I can't just back out now. They've already paid. They've given notice on their current unit. Melissa's parents are packing right now. There's a moving truck scheduled for Saturday. This was all planned, I said quietly, for months. Yes, since March. That's why I thought, Carol, are you saying Stephen lied to me? I walked to the door. I'm saying my son is not the person I thought he was. That afternoon, I called Stephen. He answered on the fourth ring. Hey, Mom. The texts, I said. The ones you showed Mr. Holleran. The ones where I supposedly agreed to move out and asked for your help finding a new place. Silence. I never sent those texts, Stephen. More silence. Did you fake them, or did Melissa? Mom, I don't know what you're... I spoke to a lawyer this morning. I hadn't, but he didn't need to know that. They said what you're doing is fraud, fabricating communications to obtain a lease under false pretenses. That's a crime. I heard Melissa's voice in the background, sharp and urgent. We can talk about this. Can we? Because right now, I'm supposed to be packing my entire life into boxes, so your wife's parents can take my home. They need it more than you do. The words exploded out of him. You're one person. They're two people who need help. God, Mom, why can't you just do this one thing for family? I raised you by myself for 18 years. I worked 2 jobs so you could go to college debt-free. I gave you everything I had. And now you're telling me I won't do this one thing for family? That's different. How? Because you were my mom. That's what moms do. And what do sons do, Stephen? He hung up. I stood in my living room, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. That's when I noticed a photograph on my bookshelf. Stephen's college graduation. I was standing next to him in my best dress, the navy one I'd bought at Goodwill because the graduation fee had taken my entire paycheck that month. He was smiling, his arm around my shoulders. I remembered that day, how proud I'd been, how he'd thanked me in front of everyone, said he couldn't have done it without me. I wondered exactly when that man had been replaced by the stranger on the phone. Thursday morning, 6 a.m., I was drinking coffee when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Multiple people. Heavy boots. I opened my door and found Stephen standing there with 3 men in moving company uniforms. Mom, we're here to help you pack. I looked at the men. Big guys. Professional. One of them was already holding packing tape and boxes. Help me pack? I repeated. Melissa thought it would be easier if we brought professionals. They'll have you packed up by noon. Then we can get you into a nice motel until you find a place. We'll even pay for the first week. One of the movers shifted uncomfortably. Even he could tell this was wrong. You hired movers to pack my belongings without asking me? Mom, tomorrow is Friday. You're running out of time. No, Stephen, you're running out of time. I stepped back and closed the door, locked it, put the chain on. Stephen knocked. Mom, come on, don't make this harder than it has to be. I walked to my bedroom, pulled out my laptop, and started making calls. The first call was to my bank. The second was to a real estate attorney. The third was to someone I hadn't spoken to in 3 months, Robert's old college friend, Marcus Henderson. Carol Brennan, he said warmly when he answered. It's been too long. How are you holding up? Marcus, I need information fast. Do you know anything about the building at 847 North Parkway? The Holleran building? Sure. 6 units, built in 53, decent shape. Old Pat's been talking about selling for years. His kids don't want it. Too much hassle. Why? My heart started beating faster. Is it on the market? Not officially, but between you and me, he's been fielding offers quietly, wants to retire to Florida. I heard he's got an interested buyer, some developer who wants to gut it and flip the units as condos. How much? Building that size, that location, probably $4.2 million to $4.5 million. Why, Carol? You thinking of getting into real estate? I looked at the bank website on my screen. The account Robert and I never touched. The life insurance payout was substantial, but the real surprise was Robert's portfolio. He'd been quietly investing in tech stocks since the 1990s. Amazon, Apple, Nvidia. He never sold. Plus 7 years of my own savings and compound interest, all of it sitting there. Balance, $5,854,358.17. Marcus, I said, how fast can I make a cash offer on a building? There was a long pause. How cash are we talking? All cash, close in a week, maybe less. Another pause, longer this time. Carol, are you serious? Dead serious. Then we can close in 72 hours if the seller's motivated, and Pat Holleran is very motivated. What's this about? I watched through my window as Stephen argued with the movers in the hallway. One of them was shaking his head, refusing to break down my door. It's about teaching my son a lesson in business. Marcus called me back in 2 hours. Pat's interested, very interested. He's asking $4,200,000. I told him you'd pay $4,500,000 cash if he can close by Monday. Monday? I repeated. 3 days away. 1 day after I was supposed to be evicted. He nearly cried, Carol. His buyer keeps delaying, asking for inspections, renegotiating. You're offering more money and zero contingencies. He wants to meet you today. Today? This afternoon, 3 o'clock at his lawyer's office. Can you make it? I looked around my apartment, my packed boxes, my life in cardboard. I'll be there. Mr. Halloran's face when I walked into the law office was something I'll never forget. Carol? What are you doing here? His lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Vance, looked up from her paperwork. You two know each other? She's my tenant, Carol, in Unit 3B, the one that's transitioning to... He stopped. His eyes widened. Wait, you're the cash buyer? I sat down at the conference table. Marcus sat beside me, opening his briefcase with practiced efficiency. I am, I said. Halloran sank into his chair. But Stephen said you were... He said you needed help with money, that you were looking at cheaper places. Stephen, I said carefully, says a lot of things that aren't true. Patricia Vance cleared her throat. Mr. Halloran, do you want to proceed with the sale because Miss Brennan's offer is extremely competitive? Halloran looked at me. Really looked at me. You have $4.5 million? Marcus slid a bank statement across the table. She has $4.5 million in immediately available funds. We can wire transfer today, close by Monday morning. Halloran picked up the statement. His hands were shaking slightly. Robert's life insurance, I said quietly. Robert wasn't just a teacher. He was an early investor. He bought Amazon and Apple stock in the late 90s and never sold, plus the life insurance. Turns out I'm sitting on a portfolio worth nearly $6 million. Carol, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. You just have to decide if you want to sell your building to a developer who's been stringing you along, or to me, cash, this week. Patricia leaned forward. Mr. Halloran, I strongly advise you to accept this offer. It's clean, it's fast, and it's $150,000 more than your current buyer's offer. Halloran looked at the statement again, then at me. Stephen's going to lose his mind. Yes, I agreed. He is. And you're doing this because... I'm doing this because my son thinks I'm worthless. He thinks I'm poor. He thinks I'm someone who can be thrown away when a better option comes along. I folded my hands on the table. I'm going to teach him that he's wrong about all of those things. Halloran was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at his lawyer. Draw up the papers. We signed the initial agreement that afternoon. I wired $200,000 as earnest money. Marcus's team went into overdrive. Title search, inspection waiver, cash verification. By Friday morning, we had a closing date, Monday at 9 a.m. Friday at 5 p.m., Mr. Halloran was supposed to collect my keys. Instead, I met him in the lobby at 4:45. "I'm not giving you my keys," I said. He smiled, actually smiled. "I know. I called Stephen this morning, told him there was a complication with the lease transfer, that it would be delayed pending legal review." "How'd he take it?" "Let's just say Melissa used some words I haven't heard since my Navy days." He handed me an envelope. "This is the master key to the building. As of Monday morning, you're the owner. You'll need it for the handover." I took the key. It was warm from his pocket. "Pat, did you know about the fake texts?" He looked down. "I suspected, but Stephen's a smooth talker, and I wanted to believe family wouldn't do that to each other. I'm sorry, Carol. I should have checked with you first." "Yes," I said. "You should have." He nodded. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing, teaching him consequences." "I'm teaching him business. Isn't that what he wanted?" Saturday, Stephen called me 17 times. I didn't answer. Melissa called 9 times. I didn't answer. Sunday morning, I got a text. "We need to talk. This is ridiculous. The movers come tomorrow." I didn't respond. Sunday evening, another text. "Mr. Halloran won't return our calls. What did you do?" I smiled and deleted it. Sunday afternoon, Stephen showed up at my door. I could hear him through the wood, knocking, pleading. "Mom, please, Melissa's parents are already here. They're staying in a hotel. The movers are coming tomorrow. We need 3B. We've already moved our stuff up there. Please, Mom." I opened the door. He looked terrible, exhausted, stressed. "Good." "You moved your stuff into 3B? I asked. "Yesterday. Mr. Halloran gave us the keys. We figured since you were leaving anyway." "Mom, where are you going? Do you need help moving?" "No," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." "What do you mean you're not?" "Mom, you have to leave. We have a lease." "Do you?" His face went red. "Yes, we paid $10,500. The lease is signed." "Signed by Mr. Halloran." "Exactly, so you have to." "Stephen," I said gently, "do you know what happens to leases when a building is sold?" The color drained from his face. "What?" "When a building is sold, existing leases transfer to the new owner. The new owner has the right to review and renegotiate any new leases that haven't been properly executed." I smiled. "Your lease? The one you fraudulently obtained? That hasn't been properly executed because I never actually agreed to leave." "You..." He couldn't get the words out. "You bought the building?" "I close Monday morning, 9 a.m. In approximately 13 hours, I'll be your landlord." Monday morning, 9:17 a.m. I signed my name on the final document and became the owner of 847 North Parkway. Marcus shook my hand. "Congratulations, Carol. You're officially a real estate mogul." "I am officially a teacher with a building," I corrected, but I was smiling. Patricia Vance handed me a folder. "These are all the existing leases. You'll want to review them. And this," she pulled out a separate document, "this is the unsigned lease for Unit 3B, Stephen and Melissa Brennan. As we discussed, it's not valid because it was obtained through fraud. What are my options? You can void it entirely and evict them, or you can offer them a new lease at whatever terms you choose. You're the landlord. It's entirely your decision." I took the folder. "Thank you, Patricia. One more thing." She pulled out a business card. "If you need property management help, call this number. They're excellent. Unless you want to manage it yourself?" "I'll think about it," I said. What I was really thinking about was the text I'd received that morning. "Welcome party for Mom and Dad today at 4 p.m. in the new place. Family only. See you there." From Melissa. Not Carol, not "please join us if you have time." Family only. I spent the afternoon preparing. First, I had copies made of the purchase documents. Then I had copies made of the fraudulent text messages Stephen had shown Mr. Halloran. Patricia had obtained them through discovery. Then I printed out the new lease agreement I'd drafted with Patricia's help. At 3:45 p.m., I walked upstairs to Unit 3B, my old apartment. I could hear music through the door, laughter, the sound of multiple people talking over each other. I knocked. The door swung open. Melissa stood there, holding a glass of wine, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Her smile died when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" "I live in the building," I said pleasantly. "I heard there was a party." She blocked the doorway. "This is a private event, family only." "Melissa? Who is it?" A woman's voice from inside. "No one," Melissa called back. "Just a solicitor." I smiled. "I'm not a solicitor. I'm your landlord." Her face went white. Stephen appeared behind her. "Mom? What are you talking about?" "Can I come in, or are we doing this in the hallway?" Melissa didn't move. Stephen pushed past her and grabbed my arm. "You're lying," he hissed. "You can't afford to buy a building. You're a teacher." I was wondering when you'd say that out loud. You're a teacher, like it's an insult. Like the woman who raised you alone and put you through college is worth less than nothing. "Stephen, what's going on?" Another voice, an older man appeared. Heavy-set, gray hair, expensive watch. Melissa's father. "Daddy, it's fine," Melissa said quickly. "Just a neighbor." "A neighbor who owns the building," I corrected. I pulled my arm free from Stephen and held up the folder. "I closed Monday morning. 847 North Parkway is mine. Every brick, every unit, including this one." The apartment had gone silent. I could see them all now. Melissa's parents, both dressed like they were attending a country club event. Melissa's sister, younger, prettier, holding a baby. And Tommy, my grandson, 6 years old, sitting on the floor with a tablet, not even looking up. "You're insane," Melissa said. "You can't just buy a building." "I can when I have nearly $6 million in liquid assets. Turns out I'm quite good with money. Robert's life insurance, his retirement, 7 years of carefully calculated compound interest. He wasn't just a teacher, he was a pioneering investor. He bought Amazon and Apple stock in the late 90s and never sold. All of that growing while you and Stephen assumed I could barely support myself." Stephen's face went from white to red. "You lied to us." "No, Stephen, I never lied. You just never asked. You never wondered. You saw teacher and decided you knew everything about my financial situation." Melissa's father stepped forward. "Now see here, Mr. Lawrence, I'm glad you're here because this concerns you directly." I pulled out the lease document. "Your daughter and son-in-law obtained access to this unit through fraud. They fabricated text messages claiming I had agreed to vacate. They lied to the previous owner. The lease they signed is void." "That's bullshit," Melissa spat. "We paid $10,500. "Which you'll get back," I said calmly. "I'm not a thief, but this unit, the unit you've already moved into, your current rent is $10,500 a month, triple the market rate. That's the price for betrayal." I handed Stephen the lease. "This is your new lease if you want to stay." He opened it. His hands were shaking. $10,500? He looked up. "Per month?" "Triple the market rate," I confirmed. "That's the going rate for people who lie to landlords and fake documents and throw their mothers out into the street with 4 days' notice." "You can't do this," Melissa shrieked. "This is illegal. This is—" "Perfectly legal," I said. "I consulted 3 lawyers. You committed fraud to obtain this lease. I have every right to void it or renegotiate it. I'm being generous by offering you the chance to stay." Melissa's mother had her hand over her mouth. Her father was reading the lease over Stephen's shoulder, his face darkening. $10,500 a month, he said, "for this place?" You're welcome to leave, I said. In fact, I'd prefer it. But if you want to stay, if Melissa's parents want to stay in the apartment they stole from me, then that's the price. Stephen looked up. For the first time since I'd arrived, he actually looked at me. Really looked at me. Mom, he said quietly, please. Please what, Stephen? Please don't treat you the way you treated me? Please don't conduct business the way you said it should be conducted? I stepped closer. You told me this was business, not personal, just business. So let's talk business. You have until Wednesday to decide. Sign the new lease or vacate the premises. Those are your options. Tuesday morning, I found a letter slipped under my door. Handwritten. Melissa's handwriting. I recognized it from Christmas cards. You're destroying our family. We can't afford $10,500 a month. Stephen's job doesn't pay enough, and my parents' retirement won't cover that. You're being cruel and vindictive. Is this really what you want? To be the villain in your own son's life? I folded the letter and put it in my growing file of evidence. Then I went to school and taught 32 eighth graders about the Pythagorean theorem. Tuesday afternoon, Stephen showed up at my classroom after the final bell. Mom, we need to talk. My students were packing up their bags, chattering about homework and soccer practice. I waited until the last one left before I responded. So, talk. $10,500 is insane. You know we can't afford that. Then leave. Where? We gave notice on our old unit. We're already moved into 3B. Melissa's parents sold their house. They're counting on us. I erased the whiteboard slowly, methodically. That sounds like very poor planning. Mom, please, his voice cracked. I know I messed up. I know what we did was wrong. But this is too much. You're punishing Melissa's parents for something we did. No, I said, turning to face him. I'm holding you accountable for your choices. You chose to lie. You chose to forge documents. You chose to evict your own mother so you could give her home to your in-laws. Those were your choices, Stephen. These are the consequences. We'll sue you. For what? I've done nothing illegal. You committed fraud. I have documentation. I have the original texts you fabricated. I have Mr. Halloran's testimony. You want to go to court? Please, by all means. Let a judge hear about how you threw your widowed mother out of her home with 4 days' notice. His face crumbled. I never wanted it to be like this. Then you shouldn't have treated me like I was disposable. He left without another word. Wednesday, 9 a.m., the deadline. My phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Brennan, this is Gerald Lawrence, Melissa's father. Mr. Lawrence? We need to discuss this situation like adults. My wife and I did nothing wrong. We were told we were moving into a legitimate rental situation. We should not be punished for your son's mistakes. I agree, which is why I'm giving you the same option as everyone else. Sign the new lease at market rate or vacate the premises. You mean market rate? Market rate for this property under these circumstances with these tenants is whatever I say it is. I'm a private landlord. I can charge what I want. This is extortion. No, Mr. Lawrence. Extortion would be if I threatened to do something illegal unless you paid. This is business. Stephen taught me that. It's nothing personal. You're a vindictive, bitter woman. No wonder your son wanted you out. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, something cleaner than that. Mr. Lawrence, this conversation is over. You have until 5 p.m. to sign the lease or remove your belongings. If you're still in 3B after 5 p.m. without a signed lease, I'll file for eviction tomorrow morning. You can't... I hung up. At 3 p.m., my lawyer, Patricia, called. Carol, I just got a very angry call from someone named Melissa Brennan. She's threatening to sue for harassment, illegal eviction, and emotional distress. Can she? No, you've done everything by the book. You've offered them a legitimate lease. They just don't like the terms. That's not illegal. She paused. Carol, are you sure about this? Because once they don't sign and you file for eviction, this becomes very public, very messy. I'm sure. Okay, just be prepared. This is going to get ugly. Patricia, I said. It's already ugly. I'm just making it visible. At 4:47 p.m., someone knocked on my door. I opened it to find Melissa standing there. No Stephen, no parents, just Melissa, and she looked like she'd been crying. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She walked into my apartment, my original apartment, 3B, and looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. It's bigger than I remembered, she said quietly. Yes. We already painted the bedrooms upstairs, bought new furniture, spent about $8,000 setting it up for my parents. I see. She turned to face me. What do you want, Carol? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have done it that way. We should have talked to you first, explained the situation, asked for your help. You're right. You should have. So can we start over? New lease, reasonable rent, everyone moves forward? No. Her expression hardened. Why not? I apologized. Melissa, you're not sorry you did it. You're sorry it didn't work. That's not, you called me no one at your party, a solicitor. You told your father I was just a neighbor. Even after everything fell apart, you still don't see me as a person who deserves respect. That's not true. Then why didn't Stephen call me himself? Why did he send you? She looked away. He's embarrassed. He should be. Carol, please. My parents have nowhere to go. The house is sold. They're 68 and 71 years old. You'd really throw them out on the street? I didn't throw anyone anywhere, I said. You moved them into an apartment you obtained through fraud. You created the situation, not me. Fine, she threw her hands up. What if we pay $4,000? We can do $4,000. That's still above market rate. $10,500 or vacate. You're just being cruel now. No, I said. I'm teaching you what you taught me, that housing is business, that family doesn't matter when money is involved, that some people deserve spaces and other people don't. I walked to the door and opened it. You have 13 minutes. She stared at me. You've changed. No, Melissa, I just stopped pretending that being kind meant letting people destroy me. She left. At 5:01 p.m., no signed lease had been delivered. At 5:02 p.m., I called Patricia. File the eviction. Thursday morning, the eviction notice was posted on the door of Unit 4C. The apartment Stephen and Melissa still technically rented until May 10. They had 30 days to vacate Unit 3B. By Thursday afternoon, the whole family knew. My phone exploded with messages. From Stephen's Aunt Linda, Carol, how could you do this to your own son? From Melissa's sister, you're a monster. My parents are crying. From my old neighbor, Mrs. Chen, I heard what happened. Good for you. That last one made me smile. Friday, I arrived home from school to find Gerald Lawrence waiting in the lobby. Ms. Brennan, we need to talk. No, we don't. My daughter is having a breakdown. My wife hasn't slept in 3 days. You're tearing this family apart. Your daughter and my son tore this family apart, I corrected. I'm just refusing to be the one who pays for their mistakes. We'll give you $4,500 a month. That's our final offer. Not interested. His face turned purple. You think you're so smart, don't you? Think you've won? Let me tell you something, lady. My daughter's already talking to lawyers, real lawyers, the kind who make people like you disappear. I pulled out my phone and started recording. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? The part about making me disappear? He lunged forward, actually lunged. I stepped back, and he grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my skin. You're going to drop this eviction. You're going to give us a reasonable lease, or I swear to God. Mr. Lawrence, you need to let go of me right now. Or what? or I call the police and have you arrested for assault." He squeezed harder. "You think you're tough. You think owning one shitty building makes you somebody?" The lobby door opened. Mrs. Chen worked in, took one look at the situation, and immediately pulled out her phone. "I'm calling 911, she announced loudly. Gerald released me and stepped back. "This isn't over." "Yes," I said, rubbing my arm. "It is." Mrs. Chen was already talking to the operator. Gerald fled. When the police arrived 20 minutes later, I had the video, I had Mrs. Chen's witness statement, and I had the bruises already forming on my arm. They took a report and told me I could press charges. "Do it," Mrs. Chen advised. "Men like that don't stop unless they're forced to." I pressed charges. Saturday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. "Your charges against my father are insane. He barely touched you." "Mom, please, this is getting out of hand." "Carol, I've known you for 30 years and I don't recognize you anymore." "Melissa's sister, I hope you're proud of yourself." Unknown number, "You're going to regret this, bitch." I screenshotted everything and sent it to Patricia. She called me immediately. "Carol, this is harassment. We can get a restraining order." "Do it." "Against your own son?" "If he's sending me threatening messages?" "Yes." She was quiet for a moment. "You've really thought this through, haven't you?" "I've had a lot of time to think," I said. 7 years living quietly, working hard, saving money, being grateful for the scraps my family threw me. I'm done thinking like that." "Good," she said, "because winners don't apologize for winning." The eviction hearing was scheduled for Tuesday, 2 weeks after I'd filed. I arrived at the courthouse at 8:30 a.m. with Patricia, Marcus, and a folder 3 inches thick. Stephen and Lissa arrived at 8:45 with a lawyer I didn't recognize, a young man in an expensive suit who looked barely older than Stephen. We waited in the hallway until our case was called. Judge Margaret Rodriguez looked about my age, maybe a few years older. She had gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. "Case number 2024-EV8847, the clerk announced. "Brennan versus Brennan." We all filed into the courtroom. The young lawyer, his name tag said James Morrison, stood first. "Your Honor, this case is a clear abuse of the landlord-tenant relationship. Miss Carol Brennan purchased this property with the sole intent of evicting her own son and his family. She's charging triple the market rate as retaliation for a family dispute. This is personal vendetta masquerading as business, and we ask the court to dismiss the eviction and enforce a reasonable lease at fair market value." Judge Rodriguez looked at me. "Miss Brennan, your response?" Patricia stood. "Your Honor, the respondents obtained access to Unit 3B through fraudulent means. They fabricated text messages to convince the previous owner that Ms. Carol Brennan had agreed to vacate. They gave her 4 days' notice, illegal under Illinois law. They moved into her unit before she'd even left. And when Ms. Brennan legally purchased the building and offered them a new lease, they refused to sign and refused to leave. That's called trespassing." "I'd like to see these fabricated messages," the judge said. Patricia handed over the evidence packet. The judge spent 5 minutes reading. Then she looked at Stephen. "Mr. Brennan, did you create fake text messages from your mother?" Stephen stood. His face was red. "Your Honor, The situation was complicated. My in-laws needed housing and my mother's apartment was larger." "That's not what I asked. Did you fabricate communications to obtain a lease?" "I may have edited some conversations to make the transition smoother." "You may have edited," the judge repeated. "Mr. Brennan, that's fraud." Morrison jumped in. "Your Honor, my client made a mistake born of desperation, trying to help elderly family members, but Miss Brennan's response is disproportionate. $10,500 per month for a unit worth $3,500 is unconscionable. Is it? The judge looked at me. Miss Brennan, why $10,500? I stood. Your Honor, they paid $3,500 based on lies. They caused me significant stress, nearly made me homeless, and showed no remorse until they faced consequences. I offered them the same thing they offered me. Take it or leave it. They chose to leave it. I'm not forcing them to stay at that rate. I'm forcing them to leave since they won't pay it. She's punishing us for being family, Melissa burst out. She's a bitter old woman who— Mrs. Brennan, you'll have your turn to speak, Judge Rodriguez said sharply. She looked back at the evidence. I'm reading here that Mr. Gerald Lawrence assaulted Ms. Carroll in the building lobby. That's exaggerated, Morrison said quickly. He barely touched her. She's making it seem— There's video evidence, and a witness, and a police report, and photographs of bruising. The judge held up her hand. Enough. She looked at all of us. This is one of the ugliest family disputes I've seen in 20 years on this bench, and I'll tell you right now, I'm not interested in mediating your family therapy. She turned to Stephen and Melissa. You committed fraud to obtain housing. That's illegal. You gave Ms. Brennan 4 days' notice to vacate her home. That's illegal. You moved into her unit before she'd left. That's illegal. And when Ms. Brennan offered you a legal lease, however expensive, you refused to sign and refused to leave. That's called trespassing. Morrison tried to interrupt. She held up her hand. Ms. Brennan legally purchased this property. She has the right to set rent at whatever rate she chooses. You have the right to refuse that rate and move. You do not have the right to stay in her property without a lease agreement. She looked at her notes. The eviction is granted. You have 14 days to vacate Unit 3B. Your Honor, Morrison started. 14 days. And if Mr. Lawrence contacts Ms. Brennan again, I'm issuing a restraining order. This court is adjourned. She banged the gavel. Stephen was staring at the floor. Melissa was crying. Morrison was furiously writing notes. I stood and walked toward the exit. Mom? Stephen called. I stopped, but didn't turn around. Was it worth it, destroying your relationship with your only son? I turned then. Looked at him. Really looked at him. Stephen, you destroyed our relationship when you decided I was disposable. I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. I walked out of the courthouse into the autumn sunshine. Patricia touched my arm. You okay? I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. 2 weeks later, I stood in the doorway of Unit 3B and watched the movers carry out the last of Stephen and Melissa's furniture. They'd left the walls painted, a soft gray that actually looked better than my old beige. They'd left the new light fixtures. They'd taken everything else. Stephen came down the stairs with one final box. Tommy was behind him, dragging a backpack. Grandma, Tommy said quietly. I hadn't heard his voice in 3 weeks. Hi, sweetheart. Are you still mad at Daddy? I knelt down to his level. I'm not mad, baby. I'm just sad that Daddy made some bad choices. He said you're being mean. I know he did. Are you? I touched his cheek. Tommy, sometimes grown-ups have to have consequences for their actions. That's not mean. That's fair. Stephen grabbed Tommy's hand. Come on, bud. We need to go. Where are you going? I asked. Melissa's sister's place in Schaumburg. 3 of us in her spare bedroom until we find something we can afford. You gave notice on 4C? Last week. He shifted the box to his other arm. We're officially homeless, thanks to you. No, Stephen, you're officially facing the consequences of fraud, thanks to you. He started to respond, then stopped. Tommy was watching us both with huge, sad eyes. Let's go, bud, Stephen said again. They walked to the elevator. As the doors closed, Tommy waved. I waved back. Then I walked into my apartment, my new, beautifully painted apartment, and closed the door. 6 months later. Spring arrived early that year. By March, the trees outside 847 North Parkway were already budding, and I'd repainted the lobby a warm cream color that made the whole building feel new. I'd kept 4 of the original tenants. Mrs. Chen, of course, the couple in 2A, retired teachers like me, the artist in 1B who painted murals and paid rent in cash, and I'd rented 4C to a lovely single mother with 2 kids who worked as a nurse. Unit 3B, my unit, I kept for myself. Unit 5A and 6D I converted into short-term furnished rentals. They brought in 3 times the income of regular tenants. The building was profitable, very profitable, but more than that, it was mine. I was in the lobby one Tuesday afternoon discussing paint colors with Mrs. Chen when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Ms. Brennan? This is James Morrison. We met at the eviction hearing. Stephen's lawyer. My guard went up immediately. What do you want, Mr. Morrison? I'm not calling about Stephen. I'm calling because I owe you an apology. That surprised me. Go on. I took that case because Stephen seemed like a nice guy who'd made a mistake. I didn't realize the full extent of what he'd done until after the hearing. The fraud, the fake texts, the way he treated you. He paused. And then his father-in-law tried to hire me to sue you for emotional distress, and I learned about the assault, the harassment, all of it. I declined the case. I see. I wanted you to know that you were right about all of it, and I'm sorry I tried to paint you as vindictive. You were just protecting yourself. Thank you, I said. I appreciate that. There's one more thing. He hesitated. Stephen and Melissa are getting divorced. My stomach dropped. What? The stress of everything, the eviction, the money problems, living with her sister, it broke them. Melissa filed last month. She's blaming him for losing the apartment, for her parents having to move to Arizona with her aunt, for everything. I sat down on the lobby stairs. And Tommy? Joint custody. Stephen's got him every other week. He's not doing well, Miss Brennan. He lost his job last month. He's living in a studio apartment in Aurora. He's barely scraping by. I closed my eyes. Why are you telling me this? Because he asked me to. He wanted you to know that you won, that he's lost everything, that he's sorry. He could call me himself. He's too ashamed. I was quiet for a long moment. Mr. Morrison, you can tell Stephen something for me. Of course. Tell him that I didn't do this to win. I did it because he needed to learn that actions have consequences, that people, including his mother, deserve respect, and that family isn't a weapon to be used when it's convenient and discarded when it's not. I'll tell him that. And tell him that when he's ready to have an actual conversation, not an apology born of desperation, but a real acknowledgement of what he did, my door is open. Not wide open, but open. I'll tell him that too. After we hung up, I sat on those stairs for a long time. Mrs. Chen sat down next to me. You okay, Carol? I don't know, I admitted. I thought winning would feel different. Winning never feels like we think it will, she said. But you did the right thing. You taught him accountability. That's love, even if it doesn't look like it. He lost everything. He lost what he was willing to destroy you to get. That's not everything. That's just karma. Last week, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Stephen. Inside was a card, one of those generic thinking of you cards from the grocery store, and a note. Mom, I can't undo what I did. I can't take back the pain or the betrayal. I can only tell you that I see it now. I see what I became. I see what I destroyed. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that you were right about all of it. I love you, even if I didn't know how to show it. Stephen. I put the card on my refrigerator, not because I'd forgiven him, not because everything was fixed, but because it was the first honest thing he'd said to me in years. Last month, I did something I'd been thinking about since the day I signed those closing papers. I started a foundation, the Carol Brennan Housing Security Fund. It helps women over 60 who are facing housing insecurity, eviction, homelessness, predatory family members trying to steal their homes. We provide legal assistance, emergency funds, and education about tenant rights. We've helped 12 women so far. One of them was being evicted by her daughter who wanted to sell the house out from under her. One of them discovered her son had been forging her signature on reverse mortgage documents. One of them was being gaslit by her whole family who claimed she was too old to live alone. We helped all of them. Every time I write a check, every time I sit across from a woman who looks like I felt that day Stephen told me to leave, I remember. I remember what it feels like to be disposable. And I remember what it feels like to realize you're not. Tommy came to visit last Sunday. Jesse dropped him off, waited in the car, didn't come up. I made Tommy pancakes and we played board games, and he told me about second grade. "Daddy says you're still mad at him," he said while we were playing Uno. "I'm working on not being mad," I told him honestly, "but that takes time." "How much time?" "I don't know yet, sweetheart." He played a draw 4 card. "Daddy cries sometimes." That hit me harder than I expected. Does he? At night, when he thinks I'm asleep, he says he messed up really bad. "He did," I said gently, "but people can learn from their mistakes. It just takes time." "Like how long you were mad at me for breaking your vase?" I smiled. "Yeah, like that. That was like 2 days. This might be a little longer than 2 days." "Like a week?" "Maybe." "Okay." He seemed satisfied with that. "Grandma?" "Yes, baby?" "I miss you being at Sunday dinners." "I miss it too. Can we have our own Sunday dinners? Just us?" I looked at my grandson, 7 years old now, missing a front tooth, wearing a Pokemon shirt that was already too small. "Yeah," I said, "we can have our own Sunday dinners." His smile could have lit up the whole building. I'm 64 years old. I own a 6-unit building worth $5.2 million. I have $847,000 in my foundation account. I have 4 wonderful tenants who've become friends. I have Tommy every other Sunday for pancakes and board games. I have my job, teaching 8th grade math to kids who need someone to believe in them. And I have my dignity. Stephen took a lot from me, or tried to, but he didn't take that. He couldn't, because I finally learned what I should have known all along. You can't take from someone what they refuse to give. And I'm done giving pieces of myself away to people who see me as disposable. At 64, I'm not done yet, not even close. The foundation is expanding to 3 more counties next year. The building is getting solar panels this summer. And I'm learning to garden. Mrs. Chen's teaching me. We're putting raised beds in the back courtyard, tomatoes and herbs for all the tenants. Some people might look at my life and see loss, a son who won't speak to me, a family that fractured, a relationship that died. But I don't see loss. I see the life I built when I stopped letting other people define my worth. I see the women I've helped who don't have to lose their homes. I see the tenants who have a landlord who actually cares. I see the grandson who knows his grandma has boundaries and dignity. And I see myself, finally, as someone who deserves respect. Not because of what I give to others, but because I exist. That lesson cost me $4,200,000 and my relationship with my son. But it gave me back myself. And that, it turns out, was worth every penny. If this story reminded you of a time when you had to choose between being liked and being respected, drop a blue in the comments below if you've ever had to set boundaries with family that felt impossible. And if these stories feel like the company you need right now, hit that subscribe button, because every week we share confessions of courage from women who chose their dignity over keeping the peace. You're not alone in this, and you never have to be. Until next time, stay strong.